How can the URA Masterplan give you an added advantage in your property purchase? Hi, this is Billy from AB Property. Welcome to a new episode of The Real Facts. Today we're going to talk to you about the URA Masterplan in Singapore. Fortunately for all of us, the Urban Redevelopment Authority in Singapore has a tool that is free for you to use to understand the URA Masterplan. Whether you are a buyer, an upgrader, or an investor, you will want to know how to use this super important tool to better understand how land is being used in Singapore. Now, in a simpler explanation, if you have a stake in Singapore property, then understanding the URA Masterplan is definitely a must because it provides you with the insights to the government's plan on developing Singapore over the next few years. Knowing how the government plans to develop an area ahead of time gives you a competitive advantage. But first, you need to understand how to read the URA Masterplan, and today we have compiled 4 simple steps on reading it. What is the URA Masterplan? The URA defines the master plan as a statutory land use plan that guides Singapore's developments in the medium term over the next 10 to 15 years. In simpler terms, the master plan is a future roadmap for developments across Singapore up to the next 15 years, laid out all bare to you. Since all land in Singapore is zoned accordingly to its users, for example residential, commercial, transportation, business district, etc. The master plan acts as a semi-blueprint of the country's development and contains details such as the allowable land use and density of developments. The thing is, the master plan is reviewed every 5 years. By understanding the plans, property buyers hold an insight on their hand as they have first-hand information on future developments in Singapore. With this insight, you can get an idea of what future developments may come up and likely affect the value of a property you are interested in. Now that we have got the basics, here comes the tedious part, understanding how to read it. For someone new and hasn't been exposed to the URA Masterplan before, it can be quite daunting, especially with all the terms and different color segments in the Singapore map. Now, if you find it challenging to make sense out of the master plan, here's a simple guide to help you along. In order to understand the URA master plan, you need to first learn about the meaning behind each color code on the URA map. To get to the full legend, go to URA space and click on Find Master Plan Zoning on the first page. Then click on Legend button, which is usually located at a prominent place within the page. As you move through the map, you can click on Legend button to reference what you are looking at. Once you click the button, you can see the following details, which clearly displays the colors and stage which zone are they representing. As you can see, each color coding refers to what the land can be used for. This is where you can check what each color represents by looking at the legend, where you can find more description on it. The most important one that you must know is the beige and the light blue ones, because it tells you where property developments for residential homes are likely going to be located. Another example will be a light yellow color zoning, referring to the land being reserved for educational institutions such as primary school or secondary school. It will likely be important to you if you are someone with kids because you may want to use it to plan your child who is going to study in future. Step 2. Understanding the plot ratio. Apart from understanding the land use and its zoning, another important thing to know when you're exploring areas to purchase property is the plot ratio. The plot ratio tells you how intensively a land can be used for developments. For example, you can know if a land eventually can be allowed to construct a tall building. The plot ratio also determines the maximum gross floor area of any development on that land. That's why plot ratio can be a useful indication of potential developments in an area. Now, if you zoom in onto the URA Masterplan, you will notice each plot has a number, for example 1.3, 3.0, 3.5. This is referring to the plot ratio of the piece of land. The larger the number, the more intensively the land can be used. Meaning to say that a high plot ratio will have more units and more floor levels. If you are buying a residential project, you can roughly estimate the number of floor levels and density based on the plot ratio. If two plots of land have similar areas but different plot ratios, it means that one will be denser or taller than the other. So why is plot ratio important? That's because plot ratio indicates how tall the buildings will be on a particular plot of land. If the plot ratio number is high, it's more likely that the land will have a tall building. Residential plots with a high plot ratio can mean towering condo blocks, while a commercial land could be a new shopping mall. Looking at the plot ratio is crucial, as you don't want to be buying an expensive condo and ended up having your view blocked by another condo that is due for development in years to come, and that can seriously affect your property's valuation. Here are 4 important pointers for you to take note of when you are making use of the master plan. Point number 1. Zoom in on your area of interest. The first most helpful step to know before you use the master plan is to have an area of interest. Let's say you're eyeing a new BTO, you should first select your area of interest. For example, the upcoming developments in Teng A can be viewed when you zoom in to the Teng A town. Point number 2. Identify the key features of the lands around your desired plots. Using the master plan, you can find out the rough locations of the residential and commercial plots that will be released in Teng A. A residential and commercial 2-in-1 plot indicates that it will be a mixed development with the potential of having a mini shopping area within the neighborhood. There might even be a food center located within the plot that will be very convenient for you. Point number 3. Avoid undesirable areas. As you look through the master plan, you may notice undesirable areas that you might want to avoid. For example, it can be the B2 industrial area, which are generally reserved for heavy industries. These places typically emit air and noise pollution. So living near this heavy industry would mean that there will be factories emitting unpleasant gases and loud noises. Lastly, estimate the worth of your targeted plot. If you are buying the property for investment, then you can also use the master plan to estimate the worth of your desired location. While it is almost impossible to predict the future prices of development, you can certainly gauge the worth by comparing it with similar plot in the vicinity. For example, Teng A versus Jurong West or Bukit Batok. The master plan can also give you a clue to the upcoming developments in the area that could drive your property's prices. For example, MRT and business parks. While the URA master plan is very useful, there are still limitations to it. The URA master plan can be quite useful when it comes to making property decisions. It should not be used as your sole source of information. Sometimes it can be difficult to execute the plan even with a roadmap in place. That's why the URA master plan is reviewed once every 5 years. That being said, consulting master plan can give you an idea of how the land in the vicinity is going to be used, as well as how dense it can get. But the master plan does not specifically give you details of what exactly will be built there. For example, if a land is reserved for public transport, it may or may not be a bonus to you because it can be an MRT station or it can also be a bus interchange, and that's where the differences are. So, it is important to supplement your research with news and updates from URA and LTA on developments in the area as you keep an eye for updates such as new shopping mall or condos that might be blocking your view. Alright, we have come to the end of the episode and we really hope that today's information it will be great help for you towards your real estate investment. If you have any questions about the URA Masterplan, please feel free to contact us and we will be glad to share with you what we know. This is Billy and I'm from AB Property. Thank you for watching The Real Facts. See you next time.
笑容，看，加油要我这好。
Okay.
Action.
Now that we have got the basics, here comes the tedious part, understanding how to
有点玩
now